Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. We are in man, I've already lost how many weeks we've been doing this for. We're in week 5 now of the NFL season. College football week 6. The season is just flying by. We've got a pretty good grasp now of what teams are going to be in the college side. NFL side just feels like a complete mess still. James, I'm Sean. This is James. I'm going to pass it on to you, James. What are your notes from last week? Let's break down some of the highlights.
Yeah, I'll let me jump into it and feel free to chime in after any note I say. So, start off with Thursday night football. Cowboys got a much needed win. Kind of an ugly game, but the Cowboys pulled it out. I swear I saw something about the potential benching of Daniel Jones, but obviously that's not the case. Drew Lock is prepared to play. Sean, do you think if the Giants lose another game, do we see Drew Lock, or are they just going to hang with Jones for the rest of the season?
I think they got to probably just hang with Jones as long as they possibly can. The moment that you pull him out, that pretty much means the end of him in New York. That contract that they gave him is not a good one. But it really is the feeling of the front office, the head coach. They think that the Giants can contend this year or not. I think by far the Giants are the worst team in that division. That says a lot because Phillies looked bad. Um, it's a tough decision. I mean, if you think Drew Lock can be the guy, we may see something in near the end of the season, but at this point, I don't think we see it anytime soon, unless Daniel Jones gets hurt.
It's a fair statement. I agree with most of that. So, moving on, Broncos stunned the Jets in what might have been the worst game to watch. What an awful, awful slugfest of not even a slugfest. It was punches getting thrown and not even hitting anything because the score was so bad. Bo Nix tossed his first touchdown of his career. Do we think Nix is the guy in Denver? Are the Jets? Was that just kind of a hiccup for the Jets? What do we take away from that game?
The Jets are going to have to figure this thing out really fast. With Aaron Rodgers being at the helm now, even though he's 40 years old, this offense should not look this bad. Um, they got to figure it out real fast, or there's going to be changes in New York. I think pretty quick, more with Robert Saleh than anyone else. Rodgers, this is probably it. I don't think there's another season after this. Even some of the talent they've got around them that a lot of people have been hyping up, it's just not as good as it looks on paper. On the flip side, Denver, their defense is just really good. Bo Nix has just kind of inherited a great defense, but offensively, they're definitely the bottom of the league. They're one of the worst, toughest offenses to watch. So they're more of a product of their defense is really good.
Yeah, and he's young in terms of experience. Maybe not young in terms of age, since he did play 6 years in college. But we'll see if he can, stick it out and potentially have a career in the NFL and stick with Sean Payton in Denver, if that's the direction they choose to end up going. Vikings stay undefeated with a win at Green Bay. Talk about a Jacqueline Hyde performance for both teams. The Vikings came out with a sucker punch right to the face. Sam Darnold looked awesome. The offense sort of took a dump in the second half, and they let Green Bay get back into that game. But the Vikings are looking pretty legit. I also think Green Bay's very good. We got to see Jordan Love back on the field, and that was a super offensive game.
Yep, I agree.
The Bucks absolutely thrashed the Eagles. That was surprising, I think. I know we both picked the Buccaneers to win last week. I didn't see it happening like that. Eagles have a lot to worry about. And Nick Sirianni, from a lot of the press conferences I've seen, is not handling things the right way because he's getting just blasted by the media.
The Philly team, don't get me wrong, they are injury ridden right now on the offense side of the ball. Their defense is not good. Um, on the flip side, and Philly's gonna it could turn really bad really quick, especially since I think Dallas is gonna be better as the season goes on, and Washington is beginning to look like the real deal. Philly's got to turn it on quick, or they're going to find themselves buried in this division. On the flip side, Baker, one of his guys that a lot of people compared him to was Brett Favre, and he's proving to be that gunslinger that we all thought he was going to be. He just chucks the ball and he makes plays.
Yeah, he's got a great receiving core too, so that helps. But that that's looking like a great signing for the Bucks and definitely a quarterback of the future.
Yeah,
The Bengals get off the schneid. Finally, finally, finally pick up a win. Question for you now. The Colts. Is Anthony Richardson Mr. Glass? He might come back and play this week. I've seen reports saying that he's starting to practice, but man, this guy just can't seem to stay healthy.
yeah. I mean, the thing with Anthony Richardson, it's so hard to evaluate someone basically through 6 games in his career because he only played 2 games in his rookie year, and then now we're 4 games into this. But 2 injuries in 6 games. When he has played, he looks like an athlete, but the team doesn't really click. The team looks better when he's not the quarterback. They looked great. I wouldn't say great, but they looked very good. They looked like a good offense with Garner Minshew at the helm. And then Joe Flacco, great veteran, has won a Super Bowl. He's a good quarterback. Came in and he was slinging the ball like Anthony Richardson couldn't the first 3.5 quarters of the season, or 3.5 games of the season. Um, I think we got a bigger issue with Anthony Richardson. It's only 6 games, but it's a whoa. When you're not in the game, we can throw the ball, but when you're in the game, we cannot. That's kind of a problem, and it's going to be one of those things kind of going forward. It's great to have an athlete as a quarterback, and we've got this model of Lamar Jackson kind of started it a little bit about 7 years ago. You want to have a quarterback that can chuck it, but also run. Some of these guys that can run just can't throw the ball. Lamar Jackson can do it. Some of these guys are gifted. Kyler Murray can do it. Baker Mayfield, another one. He runs around. He throws it on target. Anthony Richardson, I don't know if he's a very good quarterback. Injuries or not, I just don't know if he's going to be it. It's amazing to say 6 games into
Yeah,
his career.
well, and accuracy seems to be an issue. It's like he makes one play and you're like, oh my god, this guy, he's going to take over the league. And then the next play, he throws an interception literally right to a defender. So, yeah, if I was a Colts fan, I wouldn't mind a potential quarterback change if Joe Flacco is really going to give that team an opportunity to win. Their defense isn't awful. They have some good skill position players, so why
Yep.
not give Joe Flacco a chance, especially at his age? I mean, it's not like he's going to stick around for much longer.
Yep.
I guess, speaking of Joe Flacco, going into my next note, his old team, the Browns, another loss, another subpar performance from Watson. He's gotten better as the season's gone along. I wouldn't say he's been great. I'm going to say it again like I did last week. Curious when the quarterback change is coming. I mean, Browns fans have to just be getting so frustrated. Again, another team that looks like they're on the up and up. They have a great defense. Cooper and Judy are, two really solid receivers. Nick Chubb is potentially back within the next couple weeks, but Jerome Ford has been handling the running back carries and dump downs nicely. I know Njoku's been hurt, but when he comes back, there's another weapon. I just think they got to make the change to Jameis Winston and see what's going on. Especially, again, I don't want to just keep repeating week after week after week. Deshaun's got the off the field issues, along with obviously on field issues because it's not good. But I don't know. I think a quarterback change needs to happen at some point.
Yeah, the one thing that's going on in Cleveland, though, on top of that, is the fact that their O line is just so bad. It doesn't really matter who you're going to throw back there to throw the ball; they're going to get crushed. There was times last week in Vegas where Watson had 2 seconds and he was already surrounded. I mean, it's just that line is just not very good, and it was a line that a few years ago was actually very good, and now it's amazing how fast the NFL changes. Um, it's just not a very good O line, and what they're trying to do is, I don't think Watson's a great quarterback at this point. And the change probably will happen, but I don't think Jameis Winston's going to have very much better luck, honestly. Um, when you have a bad O line, it's tough.
Yeah, that's a good point. Watson, I think his vision isn't great. I think he's kind of one of those guys who locks onto a receiver, and if he doesn't have it, he kind of scrambles. But yeah, having a bad offensive line is not going to help. The Chiefs lost Rice, and ironically, it was Patrick Mahomes who gave him the potential season-ending injury. I guess we don't technically have word yet. There's been rumors that it's a ACL, but we're not entirely sure. Regardless, he's going to be out for a while. Chiefs lose Rice, but they still pull out the win. This team, I swear, they just can't lose. Like they're losing guys left and right. Hollywood Brown, Rice, you know, and they just continue to win. Travis Kelsey had not been good until this game. Yeah, they're just a winning team. They have that formula. They have a good head coach. They have a great defensive coordinator in Spagnola. And then when you have the best quarterback in the game, you can pull shit out of your ass and win, in the last couple minutes. So it's
This
getting hard to think that they can really keep this up, but I guess we'll see. Mahomes will Mahomes.
this is I've for the last couple of years I've really been comparing the timeline of Tom Brady and the timeline of Patrick Mahomes, and just kind of like how things are going down the pipeline, both of their careers. And this is beginning to feel like that 2011 New England year, where you looked at the New England Patriots team and it was awful. But what came out of awful was Julian Edelman and Gronk, and his story didn't end well. But Aaron Hernandez, you got a lot of playmakers that came out of like oh my god, this roster looks terrible. The Kansas City roster looks at places old and not very good. But Patrick Mahomes, being as good of a quarterback as he is, we're going to find it. There's going to be a diamond in the rough here. It's going to be someone we don't know anything about, and this guy's going to emerge. We have no idea who he is yet. There's going to be like the Julian Edelman. He's going to pop up, and everyone's going to know his name by the end of the year. I'm predicting that.
Yeah, it could be someone like Justin Watson. We could see a reemergence out of Juju. I mean, there's a name obviously people know, but he hasn't really. I wouldn't say he hasn't been great since he was solid his first go round in KC, but I mean, from being an elite wide receiver really since Pittsburgh. So, or maybe it'll be like Noah Gray. Maybe it'll be a two tight end system with Noah Gray and not Gronk, Kelsey. So
But
yeah,
I
the
mean,
jury's out.
even look at Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was wanted by no one in the league, and he comes in last week, and they ask him to be the first down back, and he ended up with what, 80 total yards. He had a fine day, and he
Yeah,
was
he looked like
outcast by the rest. No one wanted him.
Derrick Henry is not done. I'm gonna put that out there. Uh, People, I think, when the trade happened, was it a trade or signing? I can't remember. But when he went to the Ravens, everyone's like, that's a good fit for him. He'll be a good, two down back. Maybe the key word there was maybe he still has something left in the tank. Well, yeah, after that Bills game, I think he still has something left in the tank.
Yep.
Um, the Ravens also crushed the Bills. That was a statement. They're probably the best 2-2 team in the NFL. A lot of people are saying they could even be the best team in the NFL. So that was quite the statement by the Ravens. And last but not least, I think Miami actually needs Tua. That offense looks awful. I'm going back and forth on whether I think that should actually happen. I don't think that they should rush Tua back, just from like a straight human perspective. Like, the guy has had like 4 concussions, and one more, his career might be done. So I don't know what the answer is there. I guess you kind of just get by with Huntley, maybe another week practicing and with the playbook. He can kind of make do with some of those Ferraris he's got with A Chain and Waddle and Hill, who talk about Tyreek is he looks pissed off. Um, but yeah, Tua I think is making a statement that he's gonna probably get paid if he sticks in the league and sticks with Miami because I know we've talked about this, but he is very very important to that team.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with Tua was actually the contract that he signed this past off season. A lot of it's guaranteed because of because of the concussions. So how he's got it written out, that's why a lot of people are like, "Is he going to retire?" Because so much of the money, because of his health, they made it that like he was going to get paid. So he's pretty protected. There's a lot of word now coming out that he's eyeing a week 8 return. I think that's right. And that's what they're looking like, and things seem to be going well. It's that whole human factor, though. You don't want to see him get hurt again, but apparently all signs are pointing towards he's going to return. But at what point? I mean, it's one of those weird things. Miami right now just looks so bad. What do you do? So, what do you do?
Oh yeah, I guess you're right. I guess he did get maybe they were talking about having to pay Tyreek or something like that. I guess Tua did get
Some of
guaranteed
you,
money,
it's
but
it's it's the receiving core. That's the question. It's Waddle. Waddle, I think, is got to get paid. And you could all the mouth readers out there were saying you could say, we're saying on Twitter and stuff that Waddle was asking for a trade on the sideline. I mean, it's stuff like that. Um, I don't know. Miami needs an offense. They just didn't look good. They don't look good against New England, and they lose to New England. It could get pretty scary pretty quick. Tua's return at week 8 may not matter. The team may pull the plug pretty early on this thing. Um, but that being said, you want to jump into week 5 picks?
yeah, let's do it. Last thing I will say, a little bonus note: Jaden Daniels is really good at football.
Yeah, he looks really good. It's going to be interesting to see how long he can do this for. Because the NFL, once they got film on you, they start to shut it down. We'll see how long this continues. All right, well, let's just start it off. Thursday night football. Tampa Bay heading to Atlanta. Atlanta favored in this one.
This should be a pretty fun game. I like the Bucks on the road. I think Baker is coming off a really good performance. This could be, for a Thursday night game, a pretty offensive heavy game, which we don't always see, and it would be nice to see. Um, I'm a little skeptical. I know Bijan came out and said he's good to go, but there's some little minor injury bugging him. So we might see a little more Tyler Algier. I guess we'll wait and see. But I just I really like this Bucks team. So I like the Bucks winning by like a field goal or something on the
I've got
road.
I've got the Bucks as well on the road. Moving on to Sunday, the Jets taking on Minnesota in London, first London game of the year.
I like the Vikings in this one. I think Aaron Rodgers is finally starting to show his age a little bit, and that performance against the Broncos. I know it was in the weather and it wasn't ideal, but like I said earlier in this podcast, I think the Vikings are the real deal. Sam Darnold's playing very well. Justin Jefferson's fired up finally and excited to play. Addison had a really good week. Aaron Jones has actually been, Father Time hasn't quite hit him yet, so I like the Vikings in the London game, and we'll see if I wake up to watch it.
Yeah, I got Minnesota as well. I think their defense is going to be overwhelming. The bigger story though is going to be after that game. The Jets, if they lose, fall to 2-3. Their only two wins are going to be to Tennessee and New England, who both look very bad. Um, it's crazy to say this. If they lose this game and it doesn't look good, does Robert Sala have a job on Monday? Because he may not. Um, I know
They might just
losing,
leave him in London.
yeah, they might because starting 2-3 was not part of the agenda, especially when your first five games at the beginning of the year looked very, very doable of a 4-1 start. Looked very doable, and this is a team that, as the season goes on, it's an old team. This team's not going to get healthier. They're not going to get younger. It's probably going to get worse. So um, we'll see. There's a lot of story. I mean, if Minnesota wins that 5-0 as well, I mean, no one saw that coming. Um, moving
And if the
on.
Jets lose, maybe Adams gets traded to
Yeah,
pair
it's
back
like one
up
of
with
those things.
Rodgers because they need to do something.
Yeah, it's one of those things of who starts moving pieces and stuff like that. Like, yeah. All right, moving on to the next one. Carolina heading to Chicago. Chicago favored in this one, -4.
I really have nothing on this game. Both teams don't look great, but I'm going to give the edge to the Bears because it's at home and they have the better defense. So Bears at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bears too. They win this one, they go to 3-2. That's kind of like a false illusion, though. Yeah. Uh, we got Baltimore taking on or heading to Cincinnati.
This game is always super fun. Should be pretty defensive, I would think, at least out of the Ravens. We'll see what Bengals team shows up. But I like the Ravens on the road. I just haven't seen enough to confidently say the Bengals can win this game. I don't know. It's like when the offense is doing well, the defense is awful. When the defense is doing okay, they can't score. And I mean, maybe that's why they have one win. So I like the Ravens on the road.
I'm also taking the Ravens for a lot of the same reasons. Miami taking on New England. They're heading up to Foxborough.
This seems like a redemption opportunity for Tyler Huntley. He didn't have a good game. You were a Pro Bowler a couple years ago in what people say maybe shouldn't have happened. So maybe show off why you should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. You get a really crappy Patriots defense. Like I always say, you have plenty of people to use your Tyreeks, use your Waddles, use your A-Chan, and put it to the Patriots. I mean, this is a game where I could easily see Miami throwing up like 30 points and coming out and just not saying that that's the team they're going to be the rest of the year, but the Patriots are that bad defensively. So this is a bounce back opportunity for the Dolphins, I believe.
This I don't even this I not only say is worst game of the week. This might be one of the worst games to watch all season. The Tennessee Miami game last week on Monday night was dreadful. This could be worse. I have Miami just because I feel like they have more hope of scoring with the speed that they have. Shockingly, Vegas has this game as New England's favored by 1. That tells you how bad Miami has been. But I
Interesting.
I have Miami. Cleveland heading to Washington. This one's pretty easy for me, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think Commanders at home. Cliff Kingsbury seems to have found a quarterback that he can actually mesh with. Jaden Daniels, so far, looks like the real deal. And, we've talked about the Browns a lot. That is just, I don't know. I don't like them. I don't like them on the road. I like Commanders at home.
Yep, I got Washington as well. Indianapolis heading to Jacksonville. Yeah,
I like the Jacksonville Jaguars here, and I think they finally get a win. They're defeated, I guess you can say. They have 0 wins, but I think this is an opportunity in a divisional game to pull out a win. Trevor Lawrence has started to look a little better, but take advantage of either Joe Flacco as the backup in or Anthony Richardson, who when he's in the offense looks worse. Also, we might be seeing Trey Sermon and not Jonathan Taylor, so this might be one of the only opportunities the Jaguars have to get a win. So I got the Jags at home.
Yeah, I agree. The question for me really is what Jacksonville team are we going to see? Um, you know, one week they look like the worst team in football, and then they have weeks where they look competitive and they lose. They could have easily won the week one against Miami. They could have very easily won last week against Houston, but then they have games like against Buffalo where they don't even look like they're an NFL team. Indianapolis is really hurt though, and I feel like Jacksonville is going to pull one of these out. So I'm going to take the Jags. I think they pull one out in this one. Buffalo going to Houston. Pretty good game here. Probably the best game in the morning slate, I would say. Buffalo taking on Houston in Houston. Stephon Diggs redemption game.
If this if this was in Buffalo, I think I'd pick Buffalo, but because it's in Houston, I like the Texans. Like you said, Stephon Diggs redemption game. Um, yeah, this should be a really, really fun game. Hopefully super offensive. Um, but yeah, I think CJ Stroud and Josh Allen are just gonna just go back and forth, and this could be one of those games. Whoever has the last offensive drive wins the game. But I like the Texans at home.
Yeah, I'm taking the Texans as well. My reasoning is really stupid. I'm going up against no Buffalo Bills in fantasy football. When I go up against Buffalo Bills in fantasy football, all their guys ball out. I'm not facing any of them, so none of them that will. None of them will. So I'll take Houston. There's your dumb reason of the week. Buffalo actually favored by one in that one. Also, on a real note, though, they did not look good against Baltimore, and that kind of I don't know, just kind of gave me a little bit of sour taste on it. But going into the afternoon games, Vegas heading to Denver, two offenses that are really struggling, in my opinion.
Yeah, this also could go down as one of the worst games of the weekend. I like the Raiders on the road. We're probably not going to see Devonte Adams playing, but this is an opportunity for Zamir White to potentially do something finally. The Broncos do have a good defense, but their offense has shown me absolutely nothing. The Raiders have had wins at least like against the Ravens, so like if they show up, I think they're the better team. So I'm just kind of hoping they're the better team. So I like the Raiders on the road.
I'm actually going to take Denver. I just don't know how the Raiders are going to score. This might be the battle of the kickers, honestly. I mean, the over underline is 35. I don't know how they combine 35 points in this game. Um, I think it's going to be ugly. Denver wins field goals. I don't know who scores a touchdown in that one. Um, Next game, Arizona going to San Francisco, playing the Giants or playing the Giants, playing the 49ers.
This one's pretty easy for me. I think the Niners win at home. The Cardinals look inept offensively and defensively, and they had a real opportunity pre-game. Obviously, it's hindsight's 2020, but they should have at least put up a better showing against the Commanders last week, and that was such a piss poor performance. I don't know if I've ever seen a more hyped fan base after the Cardinals got their first win in week two to now after week four. I mean, the Cardinals are looking like potentially one of the worst teams in football, so there's nothing that gives me hope for the Cardinals to have any lick of winning this game at all. So I like the 49ers at home.
Yep, I'm taking the Niners as well. Green Bay heading to LA to take on the Rams.
I like the Packers. Another week of Jordan Love behind the helm. Guy can sling it. Um, Dontavius Wicks is emerging finally. He's been compared to Devonte Adams, so if he can have a Devonte Adams and Wicks, and then Jaden Reed Josh Jacobs has actually been playing pretty well, or at least he's starting to kind of ramp it up to be, the running back that we know he is. The Packers look kind of scary, and their defense is a bunch of ball hawks. It's like they always get like 2 or 3 interceptions every game, it seems like. So the Rams don't really offer me any hope. They're super injured. Stafford, I don't even know. He's throwing the ball to Tutu Atwell. Who the hell is Tutu Atwell? Give me the Packers on the road.
Yep, I'm going to take the Packers as well. New York Giants heading to Seattle.
I like Seahawks at home. 12th man is always a tough place to play. I know the Giants have Neighbors, and he looks awesome, but Daniel Jones does not look awesome, and Neighbors is making Daniel Jones at least look a little better than he actually is. Seahawks lost a stunner to the Lions in what was a pretty good game out of Geno Smith in that offense. Their defense just didn't quite lock it down against Detroit's offense, but I think the Seahawks rebound at home.
I think Seattle wins this game as well. This is a tough matchup just from the scheduling standpoint. Giants get 10 days off. The Seattle Seahawks get the minimum of 6. So, Giants are going to come in rested. Granted, they have to move cross country. They go to 12 man, all that stuff. I still take Seattle, but I think it's going to be closer than the line indicates, which is 6. I think this is going to be a close game. Seattle edging it out probably in the last few minutes. Sunday Night Football, shocker. Dallas is on Sunday Night Football. They're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh.
I like the Steelers at home. I think their defense is going to hound Dak. The Cowboys have 0 run game, so if the Steelers can come in knowing that Dak's going to have to throw, you know who you have to cover. I know it's easier said than done, but see what you can do to try and inhibit CeeDee Lamb from going off. Brandon Cooks is out, which means Tolbert will be the number 2. He, to me, seems like he thrives kind of better as a number 3. I don't know if he's quite ready to handle, second duties. But yeah, the Cowboys just did not instill anything of my liking last Thursday against a really crappy Giants team. And honestly, the Cowboys have looked really bad all year. So I think the defense of the Steelers comes to play. And it's just another week of Justin Fields to keep proving why he should continue to, not let Russell Wilson take over the reins. So give me the Steelers at home.
I'm actually going to take Dallas in this one. I think this is going to be a pretty ugly affair. If you kind of see a trend here, I think this is going to be a pretty low-scoring week across the board. A lot of really good defenses, things like that. I think Fields kind of is starting to get a little bit exposed. He did last week against Indianapolis. I think Dallas presses on that. I don't think Dallas's defense has been great by any measure, but I think they find a way to shut down Pittsburgh, and Dallas finds a way to win this game surprisingly. This is what Dallas does. They win games when we think that they're counted out. So I'm going to say that they win this one. Monday Night Football. New Orleans Saints heading into Kansas City. Who wins this one? Now, I can't believe it. Kansas City is favored by 5.5.
Yeah, that seems like too much with all the injuries they have. I'm still picking the Chiefs. I'm going to say it. This is my 5th week in a row of saying it. I'm not betting against Mahomes until he shows me not to. So they're 4-0. And yeah, like you said, someone's going to just pop up out of nowhere. Maybe that's a Justin Watson. Maybe he goes off for a touchdown and 60, 70 yards. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I got the Chiefs at home for no apparent reason, just the fact that they got Mahomes.
Yeah, I've got the exact same thing, the exact same feeling. All right, well, there's our predictions. Let's turn the page and turn this over to college ball. Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it. I'll run through my notes kind of quickly. We can stop on my first one because I know you'll have some comments for that, and then I can kind of run through the rest of them, and feel free to stop me if you do have anything to say. But, it's pretty easy to start off by talking about that Alabama-Georgia game. That was maybe the best game of the year. I don't know if anything's going to top that. I mean, that was insane. Obviously, Alabama got the win over Georgia. Both quarterbacks were, in the long run, awesome. I know Carson Beck didn't come out great in the first half, but at the end of the day, both guys vying for the Heisman and both clearly looking like they should probably be in that final four for the Heisman. And you can't talk about that game without talking about Ryan Williams. He kind of stole the show. Kind of a lanky, like a Devonta Smith looking receiver. He's also 17, which is crazy. Uh, yeah, Alabama might have found another receiver. They seem to just be, honestly, receiver U at this point with the amount of receivers they seem to put into the NFL. So that's kind of the note I put down. But what do you think of that game, Sean?
Yeah, about probably game of the year. It's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, we're so early in the season, but I would love to see that again at some point during the playoff. I guess they could match up against each other in the SEC championship. Um, I hope that's not the last time we see that matchup. That was pretty great.
Well, moving on, I have Miami narrowly escaped Va Tech. Virginia Tech had two Hail Mary attempts at the end, with the second one getting ruled a touchdown, and then, going to review and they took it away. So that was really big for Miami because it keeps obviously, their college football hopes alive. Kentucky upset Ole Miss in what you and I have we talked about being probably a trap game. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens with Ole Miss. I put down that might have ended their shot. I know the SEC is kind of starting to beat up each other, and a lot of these teams have. I mean, the schedules of these SEC teams are insane. I mean, you still have Texas and Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee. I mean, they're all starting to now play each other, so that's going to be a fun battle to see who out of the SEC can make it.
I think when it comes down
Notre Dame holds.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, in the end of that one's going to be, um, it's going to be interesting to see how the voting committee kind of ranks everyone throughout the season. I think you losing to Georgia, losing to Bama, losing to even Tennessee in their place. A lot of those are going to be more forgiven. I think losing to Kentucky at home, even though it was an SEC matchup, I think that's going to be a tough sell. I legitimately believe with how good the SEC is, I'll talk about it later on, but you know, Ole Miss may have just shot themselves in the foot, and they have to play. I don't remember off the top of my head. I know they have to play Georgia and or Alabama still. You're in a spot now where even if you split, it may not be enough. I mean, and we're probably going to get one
Yeah.
of these teams, like Tennessee or Alabama or Texas, in my mind, is going to go undefeated, and there's one of your teams in the SEC championship. And the SEC championship loser will get into the playoff, in my opinion. So,
No, I agree with that. Well, we saw Notre Dame hold on at home. They're keeping their shot alive. I think they're not. Well, we'll get to the our predictions of the playoffs later, but I think they're still kind of holding on there, not quite there, but you know, much needed win and a good win against Louisville at home. K State. This was a battle of two a one loss Big 12 teams, and K State kind of killed Oklahoma State's shot, in my opinion. And something's wrong with Ollie Gordon. I mean, to come in and be a Doak Walker, potential winner, I mean, he's looked awful.
mm,
Speaking of the Big 12, I think we need to probably start talking about BYU at some point. We don't have to this week, but another big win for BYU. My one question for you, you can keep your answer short. Don't feel like you need to go on and on about this, but Colorado had a huge, dominating win against UCF, and I think UCF was favored by like 14. So is Colorado actually good, and can we consider them a contender?
I think because they've got two athletes well, they have a few more than that, but they have two athletes that are NFL worthy, and they're two very important positions. Um, they're a top 25 team. Are they a playoff team? No, but they're improved from last year. Um, they're going to rattle off 6 to 8 wins, but they're not a playoff team. But they're good. They're better, and a lot of that's just the fact of Sanders is a he's going to get drafted in probably the top 10. Hunter's probably going to get drafted in the top 10. You have two explosive athletes, and when you have explosive athletes in college football, they can take over the game.
That's very true. Arizona dominated Utah. Utah didn't have Rising. U of A's defense looked really good. I watched that game, obviously, since I'm a homer, and that's my team. But kind of fun fact: Utah's backup quarterback who started that game is I can't think of his first name, but it's Zach Wilson's younger brother.
Oh,
So we made him look
bad.
scared out there. He did not have a good performance. Army and Navy are both undefeated. There's nothing really, I think, to take from that. Just more the fact that it's kind of cool that Army and Navy are having good seasons. And the last thing, don't sleep on Boise State. A little preview, they are my mid-major team to make it, but they have a running back in Ashton Giante who has 13 touchdowns through 4 games. So he's firmly in the Heisman race. Probably he might now be the best running back in college football, and vying for that number one running back spot wherever he would get drafted in next year's draft. Because, like I mentioned, Ollie Gordon's not having a good year. But yeah, Ashton Giante. If you have an opportunity and you have nothing else going on, and you scrolling through the channels and Boise State's on, keep it on there for a little bit because Ashton Giante is the real deal. So,
Yep.
John, that's all I got for my notes.
Cool. All right, we'll do a little rapid fire. We'll make these quick and short. We got 7 games that we're just going to mention really fast. We'll pick our winner for this upcoming slate of college football. Not as many ranked games, just one, but definitely playoff implications in all of these games in some way. First off, we got Michigan State taking on Oregon. It's at Oregon Friday night. This is technically Oregon's first Big Ten game. Technically, it was last week, but it was against UCLA. So, can we really call that? But this will really be their introduction to the Big Ten, taking on Michigan State. Who do you got?
I like Oregon at home. These Friday games have actually been really fun. There's always a Friday game that turns out to be pretty solid. Like last week's thriller with Miami and Virginia Tech, and like I had mentioned, those 2 Hail Marys. It was a much better game than I thought it would be. So, yeah, hopefully we get a good game out of Michigan State in Oregon, but I still like Oregon at home.
Yep, I'm going to take Oregon at home as well. They've struggled a little bit, and Michigan State's coach now was Oregon State's coach, so they know each other pretty well. They're going to be prepared, even though they just got rolled to Ohio State. I would not be surprised if they come in guns blazing in that one. Our only ranked matchup of the week, Missouri 9 going to number 25, Texas A&M.
Kyle Field's a tough place to play. A&M's only loss is at home to Notre Dame. College football's weird. It's at the time that was not a terrible loss because Notre Dame was viewed super highly. Then Notre Dame loses to NIU. But now Notre Dame looks like they're getting kind of back on track. Regardless, A&M's a tough place to play. Missouri, I'm not sold on. They barely won in overtime against Vanderbilt. And yeah, I like Texas A&M at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas A&M as well. We got a little military situation going on in this one. Navy heading to Air Force. As you said, Navy's undefeated. Air Force off to a rough start, 1-3.
Yeah, I put this down as a game to watch and a game I think would be fun to pick just because Navy's quarterback, Blake Horvath. Remember the name. I mean, Navy runs the triple option. I don't know off the top of my head how many touchdowns he has, but it's a lot. I mean, he's ran in more than he's thrown, but I mean, he's double digits in terms of touchdowns. So, sometimes you get those fun military games. I mean, Air Force also is a option team, so if you like running the ball and you like points, there's a good opportunity to watch kind of old school football between Navy and Air Force. But really, the big reason I put this down there, I think Navy gets the win. I have Navy winning, but keep quarterback Blake Horvath. I don't think he'll end up finishing in the Heisman race, but numbers wise, as of right this second, he's making a name for it. So we'll see.
Navy's a sneaky team. They're going to win this game. Navy's a sneaky team because they've already got a win over Memphis. They score a lot of points. They play Notre Dame in a couple weeks. This is a team that, say they upset Notre Dame, this team could go 12-0. This could be, as wild as it says, this team could go undefeated. And what the hell happens then? Do they go and take that 12th spot in the playoff? Who knows? Imagine if that happened. That would be weird.
That'd be
But
fun.
they could have run it because they do score. And, college football is weird. Who knows? A lot has to happen, though. Moving forward, number 12, Ole Miss, coming off their loss to Kentucky, having to travel to South Carolina. Not an easy matchup.
No, not at all. I think the only reason I have Ole Miss winning this game is because one, they have to, and two, I think they bounce back. They can't. They can't afford to lose 2 games in a row. I mean, if they lose this game at South Carolina, you can pretty much write them off for the college football playoffs. So, I think this game just means a little more to Ole Miss, and I think Jackson Dart comes back and lights it up.
Yeah, they have to win this game. They can't lose the next 2 after this for Ole Miss, LSU, and then Oklahoma. It's not easy. SEC is never easy, but they have to win this game. They lose this, you can pretty much scratch them off, and they're pretty much done. So Ole Miss wins in basically a desperation game. Next one, a game that on paper a month ago looked fantastic, now doesn't have much glamour to it. Number 15, Clemson going to Florida State. What happens here?
This might be closer than we think. I think Clemson wins. I think Cade Klubnik is the best player on the field in this game. Florida State has looked awful. I think they just got their first win last week, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, hopefully Clemson doesn't overlook them. But I like Clemson on the road.
Clemson should win this game, but I could see in a world this is the one week that Florida State figures it out and they pull off a win. They mess everything up. I'll take Clemson, though. Game of the week, or college game day at least, heading to Cal, where Miami is going to take on Cal. Miami, as you said, pulled off the miracle last week. Still ranked 8th in the country. Probably the leader in the clubhouse still to win the ACC. But they got to go cross country and play a tricky Cal team.
I think Cal hangs in for the first half, but then I think Miami shows their dominance in the second half. Cam Ward is going to have a good game. And I think Miami, they kind of towed the line a little too closely, I think, last week. And, that was a little scary if you were a Hurricane fan. So look for Miami to come out and show why they're the number 8 team in the country. And regardless of it being on the road, I can't even think of the last time Cal has had college game day. So I know their fans will be fired up, and that's a pretty cool for them, I guess, in Berkeley. But I like Miami on the road.
So here's my thing with this one. Miami, I think, wins this game. Miami historically finds a way to lose a game at some point they shouldn't lose. I don't think this is going to be it, but this could be a trap game. They have the week off next week, and then they got Louisville after that. At Louisville, they're ranked 19, I think it is, at this point. I can see Miami just coming out flat. Unfortunately, just it's in their DNA. They just find a way every single year to lose a game that they just shouldn't, and it messes up their season. I don't think it's going to be this one, but it could happen. And that's why I think College Game Day is going to Cal. Is like they know Miami could mess up at some point, uh, and that's that. Last game we're going to talk about: Texas Tech going to Tucson to take on Arizona. Who do you got in this one? This is probably a Big 12 elimination game right here.
Yeah, the winner of this team will stay undefeated in the Big 12 and theoretically give themselves a shot at the playoffs. Whether they can compound that down the line with their schedule and continue to rattle off wins. I'm taking Arizona at home. They proved something to me finally on the road at Utah last week. I was definitely I was definitely a sad Wildcats fan after that Kansas State game, but the defense looked fired up. The offense was, solid when they needed them to be, and I think T Mac has not scored a touchdown since week one. Look for him to get back in the end zone, but I like Arizona in what should be actually a pretty offensive matchup potentially. Texas Tech's got a good offense, so this one could actually be pretty fun. So if you're into staying up late and watching football, throw this game on because this could be some fireworks. But I like Arizona at home.
I've got Arizona as well. Arizona got really lucky with scheduling. I have to say this is that Kansas State game was technically not a conference game because it was scheduled years prior. So they got really lucky,
Yep.
and the game they didn't win was actually not a conference game. So they really kind of got they. So if anyone didn't know, we're saying they're undefeated. It's because they actually are undefeated. That did not count as a conference game. It was still considered out of conference due to the fact that all the conferences changed. They just didn't reschedule it. So real lucky there on that one. And yeah, I think Arizona wins, and yeah, we'll see how that kind of plays out. Um, yeah, I think one more thing before we sign off, James. What's your 12 looking like going into week 6?
So I've switched a little around, not a ton. I guess a lot of the teams are probably still similar, but I have Alabama now coming out of the SEC. Still got Ohio State, Miami, ACC. I actually have BYU as of right this second coming out of the Big 12. I know a lot of people like Iowa State, and I think if I remember right, their schedule isn't too difficult. I just think right now, if it were to end today, BYU's proven to be pretty good. We'll see if they can keep that up. My mid majors, Boise State, and then the rest of my, I guess, I don't know if you call them at large or whatever they are, in no particular order. Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, Clemson, and Missouri.
Okay, so we're pretty similar. We have two changes. So I'll just rattle through the similarities. Miami, I have Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, BYU, Boise State are the same. I have Kansas State in now, and then my other at large is Notre Dame.
So I will say I have a couple cusp teams, again in no particular order, but I'm just throwing it out there. I think Michigan's still kind of hovering around. They've got a big game. I think they play Washington this week,
Yep, they do.
but Michigan seems to win in ugly ways. LSU, I think, is still kind of hanging around there. Notre Dame, and then obviously Iowa State. And realistically, Iowa State probably is the favorite right now out of the Big 12. But I mean, BYU's like winning handedly against
Yeah.
some of these teams, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. So I guess we'll
Yeah,
see.
we'll see how it plays out. But well, James, before we sign off, any other last words before we get rolling into week 6, week 5? Well, week 6 college football, week 5 of the NFL. Any last comments?
No, I'm happy that that Houston got eliminated yesterday by Detroit. Since my Diamondbacks couldn't make it, go Detroit. They're not supposed to be there. So
Yeah.
go Tigers.
Yep. All right, guys. Until next week, thank you so much for listening. We'll see y'all later.